Hi everyone, welcome. We are just going to wait just a few minutes just to get everybody settled into the Zoom webinar, but we'll begin very shortly. All right, so I think we've reached a pretty good number, so let's go ahead and get started. Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Hutchings. I'm the Managing Director of the Vagelos Integrated Program in Energy Research, or VIPER, and we're really excited to have you all here today. I'm joined here with my colleagues Sarvelia, Peter, and Kelly, and we're going to be talking to you about each of our programs. And so just to give you a sense of what you can expect during this webinar, we have the Jerome Fisher Program in Management Technology, or MNT, which bridges the Wharton School as well as the School of Engineering and Applied Science. My program, VIPER, spans engineering as well as the School of Arts and Sciences. And then we have the Roy and Diana Vagelos Program in Life Sciences and Management, LSM, as well as the Huntsman Program in International Studies and Business, which span both the Wharton School and the School of Arts and Sciences. And so we're really excited to tell you about our programs. And so I just wanted to give an introduction to today's speakers. As I mentioned, my name is Michelle Hutchings, and I'm the Managing Director of VIPER. And I'll give just a little bit of time for Sarvelia, Peter, and Kelly to just say hello as well. And you'll hear more about us throughout the course of this webinar. And so Sarvelia, do you want to start us off and say hi?
Hi everyone, I'm Sarvelia Peralta Duran, and I'm the Administrative Director for the MNT Program, also known as the Jerome Fisher Program in Management and Technology. Nice to see you all.
Right, and Peter?
And hi, I'm Peter Stokes. I'm the Director of Advising and Administration with the Vagelos Program in Life Sciences and Management. Thank you all for being here.
Right, and Kelly?
Great, thank you. Thanks for kicking things off, Michelle. So I'm Kelly Clearig. I'm the Director of the Huntsman Program in International Studies and Business. And again, welcome everyone. We're so glad that you're with us this afternoon.
All right, awesome. And so you'll be able to hear all about our programs in this order from left to right: MNT, VIPER, LSM, and Huntsman. And just wanted to give you some information about today's format. So this event is really meant to introduce you to 4 of Penn's coordinated dual degree programs: MNT, VIPER, LSM, and Huntsman. So this is, unfortunately, we don't have a ton of time to tell you in detail all of the various things that go along with each of our programs. But what we hope is that this will, spark some interest in one or more of our programs, and then you can follow up and learn more information about it, especially at our upcoming admissions information session. So we each have very specific sessions where you can really do a deep dive into the different logistics of the program, and we'll be giving you more information about what you can expect there. And so As you're going to be hearing about all of our different programs, it's going to be a pretty wide breadth of different topics, and we just encourage you to keep an open mind about what you're going to be hearing about today. And even if something doesn't, super gel with exactly what your interests are, that's totally fine. And if you do have any friends or family or anyone else that you might think would be interested in the program, definitely feel free to pass on the information and say, hey, you might want to check out, this particular program at Penn. And so we will have time for Q&A at the end. We're going to save all of our questions at the end. We'll have a limited time for Q&A, so we might not be able to get to all of the different questions asked, but you can use the Q&A feature of Zoom in order to ask questions. And when you do, we ask that you put the name of the program or programs that you're interested in asking that question. And if it applies to all of them, feel free to say all programs, and then what your question is, and we'll try to answer them as best as we can, either through the chat or verbally at the end of the program. And we do ask that, prioritize questions that are broadly applicable to all the programs. I think we have a really unique opportunity in that all of us are here today to talk about our specific ones and how they might differ from each other. If you do have questions about clarifications on the specific program logistics, we do recommend that you save them for those admissions information sessions. And admissions also offers a lot of different events that can be geared towards the application process as well. But then to learn more, at the very last slide of this webinar, we'll give you information about all of our different programs, including we encourage you to visit our websites, join those upcoming admissions information sessions, and of course, to contact us. All right, and so now I'm going to turn everything over to Sarvelia, who's going to talk more about MNT.
Thanks so much, Michelle. So again, my name is Sarvelia Peralta Duran, and I'm the Administrative Director with the MNT program. Our program is actually the oldest coordinated dual degree program at Penn. We've been around for over 40 years. And we, as a program, I feel like we were ahead of the time before this sort of interdisciplinary study had been started. So we're very proud of that, and we continue to push kind of the envelope of trying to get ahead of interdisciplinary learning. Michelle, do you mind? Next slide. Thank you. So our program's vision in MNT is to prepare future leaders capable of tackling big global problems. We are very ambitious in the program. We try to have students who have this vision of change and want to really affect their environments. It has to do with, designing, building, and leading, and integrating technology and, of course, organizations. So our vision is really inclusive of not just building new technologies and developing new technologies, but also thinking about how organizations can enact change. So thank you for the next slide. So this is kind of our motto: design, build, lead. We really are, focused on creative thinking, thinking outside the box. How can you create really in terms of our program, we focus on what our faculty director likes to call a bilingual mindset. So it's not just learning to be a really great engineer or a really great business person, but really learning to be both at the same time and utilizing the skills that you are learning when you're developing a new technology to affect business processes and the other way around. So you're not doing one thing before and then the other, but really simultaneously you're using your skills in, in data and technology building and product development, and with that helping your organization thrive or creating new organizations. So that's kind of where these design, build, lead motto comes from. The next slide. Thank you. So the skill set that we're hoping to foster in MNT is really these multifaceted areas. So it's a deep understanding of technology, of course, a deep understanding of organizations, businesses, and the environment. Now more than ever, data fluency, that's, I think for all our programs, actually, that's probably relevant, is, just harvesting, ingesting, how do you use data? What do you use it for? How do you process it, and how do you utilize it? And then also, how do you display it? How do you analyze it, visualizing it? All of those areas of data fluency. We're hoping our students to develop their leadership skills, because we're really convinced that our students, once they graduate, they're going to be, like we mentioned before, change makers. So they have to have a sense of not just direction and vision of where they're going to go, but also action. How are they going to make these things happen? And many of our students start with that within the program. So they have very specific ideas on projects that they want to start. Some of them start them before they even graduate. And as a program, we're here to kind of help support that and direct it. We also hope to develop communication skills, because of course, to be a good leader, a good manager, you have to be well acquainted with communication skills. So written, oral, how to network, how to affect change within your immediate networks and beyond, and then the ability to persuade others to come along with you in those initiatives. And then last but not least, also an entrepreneurial spirit. And that doesn't mean necessarily that all of our students are going to want to start their own companies. Many of them do, and they have kind of that ambition. Some of them do while they're in the program, some of them do after they graduate, and some of them do many, many years later after they have done, some time in different companies, to gather more experience. But really what we mean about an entrepreneurial spirit is thinking how to kind of make your own path, how to build your own product. And that also means about kind of your own learning. So that's what we mean about entrepreneurial. The next, thank you. So the MNT curriculum spans, as Michelle mentioned, both the Wharton School and the Penn Engineering School. So all our dual degree programs, the coordinated dual degree programs, basically give you the opportunity to achieve 2 full degrees in 4 years, which means you are enrolled in both schools at the same time. You will be enrolled in the Wharton School and achieving a BSc in economics. So in the Wharton School, there's, for us, 1 major, which is economics, and then you can choose from any of the 20 different Wharton concentrations. In the engineering school, you would be doing either a BSc or a BAS in engineering, and you can choose from any of the majors in the engineering school. So within the MNT curriculum, you really have the flexibility to build it as you want and as it makes most sense for your career goals. And you can kind of mix and match. You really, the kind of combinations are really endless. And of course, the classes that you take will be dependent on the major that you choose for engineering and the concentration that you choose for Wharton. But in addition to those, we also have MNT specific courses. And this is kind of the additional value I see in a coordinated dual degree, is that you're not just pursuing these 2 degrees separately, but we are helping you integrate the knowledge from both areas right from the beginning, and guiding you along very, very purposefully through your 4 years. So we have put in place MNT specific courses to help you do that at each stage of your career at Penn. So the next slide, Michelle, thank you. And that is, for example, starting in freshman year, we have the MNT first year seminar that is meant to have you meet all of the incoming MNT students from your class. So it kind of serves a dual purpose. Is one, to introduce you to what it means to be an MNT student, to really start you thinking in an interdisciplinary way. So thinking about how to integrate both engineering and Wharton and what that means. But then also it's meant to build community and help you get to know each other. Because again, like these coordinated dual degree programs give you an additional small community that you can be part of. So that's the freshman seminar. That is normally in the fall, so of your freshman year. So as you start, you would be taking it, except if you are a transfer student, you would be taking it as you join the program in the first semester of your transfer time. Then in sophomore year, we have another class called Management 237, the Management of Technology. And that is kind of that additional piece of then starting to think about how to integrate these two pieces. And we actually have added a new component to these experience, which is the MNT Immersive Week. So at the end of the Management 237 class in May, we take the entire sophomore class to a location to have an experience in a tech hub, to see really kind of on the ground what happens in tech firms, what are some of their challenges, and then also kind of some of their innovations. Last year, we actually took the sophomore class to San Francisco, and we had each day theme around an area of possible interest in M&T careers. And we had actually the final presentations for Management 237 happened in San Francisco because the students were working with their companies tied to the class. They worked with Uber and Samsung, and they did their final presentations on the last day of the Immersive Week. So that also, the Immersive Week had this whole component of not only an academic component, a curricular piece, but then also a career section, because we had also a lot of alumni interactions, and it had this community component of everybody, all the class kind of gelling together, doing things socially as well. That's the other thing I wanted to mention about the freshman seminar, is that it's meant to introduce students to the different paths in the engineering side. So you get to hear from professors in all the different majors in engineering, and you get to hear from professors in the Wharton School from the different concentrations. So it's really meant to give you a survey of the different areas that you may be able to go into depending on what you choose, as well as expose you to alumni who are already using their dual degree in the field. So you get an idea of what it looks in real life to use these skills and what they have learned through it. In junior year, one of the optional classes is OI 236 that is taught by our faculty director, Professor Gadalon, and it's Scaling Tech Ventures. That right now is an optional class, but it follows very nicely the sequencing of our courses, and it's highly recommended for our students. And then in senior year, we have the MNT Integration Lab and Summit. This is meant to be, it's really a platform, it's a capstone for our students to really integrate all of their knowledge into a final presentation of a technology that they want to bring to market. They do a business plan together with that, and they present it at the summit. So that's kind of our MNT specific curriculum. I'm gonna move a little bit faster now through the rest of the slides. Just to give you a sense of some of our integration lab sample projects, you can read through them, but just to highlight one of them, the team of Irate, which was a dehumidification air conditioner, actually ended up winning the Wharton, what do you call this? I'm sorry. The Wharton Prize, at the end of the year. So that was, some of these projects are really very, very well developed, and they get a lot of feedback from alumni because they present at a panel. So many of our students then take them further to other competitions across the school, but then also outside of Penn. Go ahead, thank you. So thank you, that's a teammate, right, that I was mentioning. They did the Wharton Startup Challenge. Next slide, thank you. All right, so a last point is other value that you find from the MNT experience is that you have additional support. We have 5 dedicated full-time staff that help support the students through their experience. We have a summer high school program, so if you want to learn more about what it is to be an MNT student, that's for rising seniors every summer. We have entrepreneurial activities. We have alumni that visit throughout the whole school year to do recruiting, fireside chats, and roundtables. We also have dedicated funding for students for internships and also for their own entrepreneurial ventures. And we have leadership, throughout the program involving our alumni, a leadership council, which is built with younger alumni and our student board. Thank you so much. If you have any further questions, you can, ask me later and you can reach out. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Cervelia. And now, I'm going to be talking about Viper. So in a nutshell, Viper prepares talented students to advance sustainable energy science and technology through interdisciplinary approaches and cutting-edge research experiences. So I'll break this down a little bit. So our Viper students are really tackling major challenges in energy towards building a more sustainable future. And they're doing it in a way that's looking at both the science as well as the engineering perspectives. And one of the really great things about our program is that students really jump into research during their very first year and are able to make an impact on their field, not 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, but right now in their college experiences at Penn. So in terms of where Viper started, we launched in 2011 with a gift from Dr. P. Roy Vagelos and Diana Vagelos. And during the launch of this program, Dr. Vagelos said that he saw alternative energy sources as extremely important, not only for this country, but for the world. And one of the amazing things is that Dr. Vagelos actually is able to meet our Viper first years and seniors every year, and they get to hear about him as a really amazing, inspiring figure and his perspectives. But he is also really interested in learning about our students and what their interests are and what they're working on as well. So it's a really amazing opportunity to see. And so I'll talk a little bit more about why energy science and why we should care about it. So first, energy is one of the major challenges that our society is facing going forward. As a lot of you probably know, fossil fuels are where a lot of our energy comes from. And so this is in terms of oil, natural gas, and coal. And the way that we obtain these fossil fuels is because over the course of a lot of time, on the order of millions of years, and using the energy and the pressure from the earth, nature has converted dead organic material into these really highly energy dense but limited resources known as fossil fuels. And the burning of fossil fuels contributes fairly negatively to a lot of different environmental impacts, the biggest one being climate change. And this dependence on fossil fuels can also lead to a dependence on other countries that have this resource abundantly. But we've really built our lifestyles around fossil fuels and being able to turn on a light switch, have energy flood into the room, and be able to really live in this time where we have a lot of energy abundance that's at our fingertips. And so it's going to take a lot to go from this dependence on fossil fuels to building a more sustainable future that's focused on sustainable sources of energy. And there's a lot that goes into doing this. So you need to be thinking about what are the materials that make the most sense for this? How efficient are they? How can we make them more efficient? How do we go from a relatively small scale in the laboratory to things that are solutions on a national or a global scale? How do we store and transport new sources of energy, especially if they can't always be collected 24/7? And how do we change our infrastructure to be able to adapt to these new energy technologies? And so this is one aspect of energy, but I also do want to impress that innovations in the energy sector really enable us to do so much more. If we're able to reduce the amount of energy, make things more efficient, then it really opens up a vast array of possibilities. So I'll talk about Viper's approach. And so we're really interested in developing innovators within energy science. And I want to focus on 3 specific categories. One is that our students have this interdisciplinary approach where they are able to look at the science side and look at the engineering side and see the connections in between, which really gives them this unique perspective to be able to tackle these types of challenges. Viper also really supports our students in terms of research from day one. And so students dive into the laboratory in their first year and are continuously doing research throughout their time at Penn all the way up until senior year. And we have a very collaborative community. So our students are kind of united with this interest in energy science, but they're tackling it from all different sorts of perspectives. And it really is going to be taking you know, a united effort in order to share that knowledge and build that community in order to get to where we want to go. All right, so in terms of the 2 degrees, so our students are pursuing 2 degrees in 4 years, 1 Bachelor of Arts within Penn Arts and Sciences, so in a STEM major. And so this could be something like chemistry, physics and astronomy, earth science, etc., as well as pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, so chemical and biomolecular engineering, material science and engineering, etc. And as kind of Sarvelli was also talking about with MNT, with Viper, you have the ability to mix and match depending on what you're interested in. So if we have students who say, I'm super interested in math, but I'm also very interested in electrical engineering, that can be a path that they go down. We also have students saying, I really love chemistry, but also material science and engineering. And so the paths are very tailored towards what the students are interested in doing. We have a dedicated on-ramp into research in the form of our Viper 120 and Viper 121 series. And spring semester of their first year, students take our half-credit course called Viper 120. At the end of that course, that's really gearing them up to do their first summer of research at Penn. And then in the fall of their sophomore year, they take Viper 121, and this is very focused on how do they communicate about the results from their summer research. And so throughout the course of this series, our students are gaining firsthand exposure to renowned Penn faculty and resources within the energy sector, especially to be able to get a really broad breadth in terms of what are different topics within energy that they might not have known before. They also receive guidance on how to identify and join a research group and kind of hone in on exactly what they're interested in. And all the while, we're building those scientific and research communication skills so that they can become much better researchers going forward into their careers. And then in terms of exploring the world of research, our students conduct research for 3 summers or 2 summers and 2 semesters. Viper provides a lot of research support for summer research that happens at Penn, including a generous housing stipend, supplemental research funds that their professors can use towards research in the laboratory or computationally, as well as supplemental conference travel funds to be able to share that research broadly with others. Viper also has an annual research symposium, so students are able to share their findings not only within other students with the Viper community, but also to the Penn community at large. And we're really focused on building that collaborative network. And so our students have relatively small cohorts. And so our classes are capped at 25 students per class. And the idea behind this is to really foster that intimate sense of community amongst our students. And so, you know, what that means is that if you're in that cohort of 25, you have the opportunity to get to know everybody else that's within that cohort. And also other students that are in different classes, as well as our Viper alumni. And we also have a Viper Slack channel, which is a messaging platform, so students can be able to talk to other students, not only within their year, but in multiple years. It's a really good way to connect about different information that's happening and share that broadly. And throughout the year, we have weekly summer lunches, celebratory dinners, game nights, etc. And really having a lot of opportunities to connect with each other. A lot of our events right now look like this because we're all in the virtual space, but we did end up moving all of our Viper programming that would normally take place in person into Zoom. So we're not letting the pandemic stop us in terms of getting together. And then an exciting thing that's coming up in this upcoming fall semester too is that we're planning to launch a Viper Student Club as well as an alumni board in order to better facilitate that connection amongst students and facilitate the connection from our current students to our alumni as well. And speaking of our Viper alumni, I wanted to give a sense of where people go in Viper after graduating from Penn. And as you can see, there's a really broad range of what Viper students do after Penn. So we have a number of students who are in PhD programs, and there are a couple of, and so including Harvard, Caltech, MIT, Stanford, Princeton, Berkeley, etc. We have students who are going into their master's degree programs, and one student who actually went to medical school. We also have people who've gone into industry and are leveraging that technical expertise in the terms of their science background and their engineering background. And we also have had some students who've started companies of their own as well. And then we also have a lot of people who've to consulting. So they're using that background in energy science to really make a difference in the consulting world. And so that's just a little bit about our program. I'm very excited to tell you about it. And now we are going to be switching over to LSM.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And we can go on to the next slide, actually. Thanks so much. So as with Viper, for the LSM program, the patrons of our program are Roy and Diana Vagelos. And Roy Vagelos himself is an inspiration for the program in a couple of different ways. So Roy started out as a chemistry major, as an undergraduate at Penn, and then he went on to medical school, and then he became a biochemistry researcher. Ultimately, he wound up being invited to head up the labs at Merck. And did such a good job doing that ultimately they invited him to become the CEO of Merck, and so he headed up the company. When he became the CEO, it occurred to him that it would have been good to have gained a grounding not only in the science, which of course he very much got, but also in the process by which science is implemented. He dreamed up the idea that at the same time as people were getting a foundation in science, they could also learn the business skills that would help them implement life sciences innovations, which often means bring them to market. It turned out that he was brilliant at business anyway, but all the same, it would have, the idea for the program and providing that foundation is his. The other way in which he's an inspiration for the program is also that he helped an awful lot of people through what he did. So at Merck, he oversaw the invention of statin drugs, which lower cholesterol and have saved a lot of lives. He also gave a drug away, which cures a disease that was highly prevalent and not so much now, called river blindness. And he also voluntarily capped prices on pharmaceuticals when he was CEO at Merck. At that time, the pharmaceutical industry, I think it's fair to say, had a higher reputation for ethics. It had a very high reputation for ethics, and perhaps doesn't in the same way now. But what we hope is that this program will generate students with the skills not only to join and hopefully lead the life sciences industry, but also transform it for the better. So what does that foundation consist of? Of course, it consists of 2 degrees in the 4 years. One of those is a BA in the College of Arts and Sciences. And it does have to be in a life sciences major because this is a life sciences program. So a lot of the students are biology majors. There are a number of different choices of specialization within biology that students can do. So they can do things like computational biology or molecular and cell biology, for example. People can do a neuroscience major through the biological basis of behavior program, or people can major in biochemistry or straight chemistry if they would like. And then in the Wharton degree, students are allowed to pick any concentration that they want, that they become interested in. So a logical one is healthcare management and policy, but we have plenty of people who do general management, who do finance, who do all kinds of different concentrations there. As with some of the other programs here, one of the things that really ties the 2 curricula together are the courses that are unique to LSM. So all students in their first semester in the program take the LSMP 121 Pro seminar, which is taught by the 2 faculty co-directors of LSM. Dr. Burns is a professor in the healthcare management department in Wharton, and Dr. Ray is a biochemist. He's in the biology department in the college. And they actually invite a lot of guest speakers from the world of science, researchers, but also people from government and from business to come and talk about how innovations arise in the life sciences and then also how they are implemented, or sometimes the reasons why they might not be implemented. And at the end of that class, they give the students various assignments, one of which is something called a market scan, where the students get to pick a life sciences innovation and talk about its potential. So to talk about the good that it can do, but also the potential business pitfalls that might be facing it. And then at the end of the LSM curriculum, in their 4th year, the students throughout that 4th year take the LSM capstone course, which is taught by Dr. Nickberger and Dr. Lau, who are both actually CEOs of healthcare companies themselves. And they teach the students to do what they do. So the students each in teams assign themselves to an actual life sciences innovation that they get to work with. And this is healthcare because this is what Dr. Nickberger and Dr. Lau know. So they might be working on a pharmaceutical, a large or small molecule. They might be working with a gene therapy or with a cell therapy. There's a variety of different innovations that the teams work on in that class. What they have to do is make the case that this is good science, that it is an improvement over the current standard of care in whatever disease this innovation treats. But they also have to make the case that it's a good business proposition. So that means that they have to think about how they would design clinical trials in order to satisfy the FDA approval process. They have to think about pricing. They have to think about all kinds of strategic business considerations. The end product of this is that at the end of the year, they give a presentation of these innovations in front of an audience of actual industry leaders. So there are people there who have done this themselves. There are scientists, there are people from the pharmaceutical industry. There are also actual investors. And they have to make the case that this is good science and a good business proposition, as if they were actually pitching this as a company for people to invest in. Okay, right, next slide, please. Because this is a program not only about life sciences, but implementation and is very outward looking, another thing that allows the students to bring the two sides of the curriculum together and to see how things operate in the world beyond the university are the 2 internships that they do, the 2 summer internships that they do that are a required part of the program, which are both fully funded, incidentally. The students all are required to do a summer internship in scientific research, which can be in an academic setting. It might be in a medical school, but it also might well be in a biotech, a pharmaceutical company, or some other similar organization. They also do a internship the following year usually, which is in business, or it can be in policy. So we have some people who are interested in doing policy research, for example, and that's fine. But we also have people who work in investing, for example, or in consulting, or they work on the business end of pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, or other life sciences companies. So you can see here on this slide some of the organizations that students have done their internships with in the past. And moving on, during the regular year, although the students, of course, are busy with all of these classes that they have to complete, they're not so busy that they don't have time to do things extracurricularly. So the program itself puts on some events for the students to participate and enjoy and learn from, hopefully. So we have an annual retreat, which is a chance for the young students, the new students in the program, to get to know each other. It's this chance for the new students to be integrated into the community as a whole. And they get to meet a few of the older students. So they get to hear from some of our alumni and from some of our advisory board members who are older and more experienced industry leaders. We have a series of career conversations, or pizza talks as we call them, because we serve pizza, where we bring in people who work at the intersection of life sciences and management in various different ways, just to give the students some sense of where this combination might take them. There's also mentoring available to the students, so we get a lot of informal mentoring from the older to the younger students, but we can connect students with our advisory board members, with our alumni and other friends of the program. Each year we have one particular lecture that's a sponsored lecture, which is a larger event with the whole university community invited. In the past, last year we invited former Ambassador Jack Chow, who used to head up the infectious diseases efforts at the WHO. We've had Dr. Jean Bennett. She was a scientist behind an ocular gene therapy, the first gene therapy for a genetic disease that was approved by the FDA ultimately. And then the students also have time to do other things. So a lot of them do very LSM related things like research outside of their classes, or things like nonprofit consulting, and also stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with LSM, like ballroom dancing and things like that for fun. And then moving on. So this is just to give you some sense of what happens to the students after they leave LSM. What they have in common really is that all of them work generally, or most of them, the very large majority of them, work at the intersection of life sciences and management in some way. And quite often they move between things that might be more science oriented and more business oriented. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'll take a couple of examples quickly. So Suraf, when he was in LSM, did both of his internships actually in Guatemala through the medical school's Penn in Guatemala program, where he first researched and then instituted an ambulance service. He wanted to set up some emergency health services for a remote Guatemalan community that was staffed by local people to make it sustainable. Having done that, he got a taste for doing even more of that and on a larger scale. So what he did was first go to London to get a master's in public health. He came back to Penn and got an MD, MBA, and currently he's a general surgery resident, going into general surgery because he learned that that was going to be the most useful skill in the developing world. And then briefly, Eileen went a different way, and except that she also went to the UK for some reason that result is not guaranteed, to get a master's in biochemistry at Cambridge, and then a PhD at Harvard. And after that, she actually was working with a biotech company, and subsequently she's actually gotten a job with McKinsey, and we're interested to see where she transitions to in the business world with all the education that she's gotten at this point. But as you can see, what the common thread is that they both make use of their management skills, but also their life sciences and healthcare knowledge. And with that, I'll turn you over to Kelly.
Great, thanks so much, Peter. It's been really great to hear about these three phenomenal programs that I'm certainly familiar with, but as I'm listening to these presentations as well, I'm reminded of just the spirit of Penn and the interdisciplinary nature of of what we all try to do. I think really these dual degree programs exemplify Ben Franklin's approach, right, to learning. This idea that we're fortunate enough to have an engineering school and a medical school and a law school and a school of education and a school of communications and top business school, and all connected with the liberal arts school right on one campus. And I think that is definitely something that's unique about Penn and being in Philadelphia, where we're all together. So within a 10 to 15 minute walk, you can be in buildings where you have people learning all these different pieces. But as I'm getting ready to talk about the Huntsman program, it's a little bit of a shift from the kind of STEM fields that we've been talking about for the last bit of time. But the Huntsman program really is similarly designed to prepare global leaders to solve some of the most challenging global issues of today, right? Even I'm thinking, on the idea of taking creative, collaborative, innovative approach to problem solving. We think about the reason why we are all on Zoom, connected via Zoom today, and many of us are in our home offices or bedrooms, but we've been able to innovate and find lots of ways of continuing to connect and educate ourselves. But here, so I'll transition to the Huntsman program. So again, it's a 4-year program where students are going to get a degree from the College of Arts and Sciences and a degree from the Wharton School, gaining depth of knowledge in a specific target language and region of the world, including a required semester of study abroad, while also gaining a breadth of understanding and expertise through the international studies major and the Wharton curriculum. So the program really, again, it's designed to support the development of globally minded scholars who become engaged citizens, creative innovators and ethical leaders in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors in the US and across the globe, really qualities exemplified by the life and service of John Huntsman Sr. and his family, for whom the program is named. So next slide, Michelle, if you don't mind. Okay, so similarly to the other programs, Huntsman students are fully matriculated into the college in Wharton. And I think was something that's different from the Huntsman program is we actually do not accept transfer students. So to acceptance into the Huntsman program is at the time of application to Penn. So when you log into the common application for all of these programs, you'll see that there's an option to apply to a coordinated dual degree. So the Huntsman program is only entry as a first-year student at Penn. But so the students are doing the full College of Arts and Sciences general curriculum. They're also doing the Wharton core and choosing one of, I think, over 20 concentrations at Wharton, similar to some of the other programs we talked about. And I think what's piece that's unique to all of our programs, I've seen some of the questions in the chat of, what's the difference between the coordinated dual degree and can you be a dual degree student at Penn? And in fact, you can. And there are opportunities for students to be enrolled in two schools. It's challenging, but possible. But I think one of the pieces is the coordinated. We're called coordinated dual degrees because the curriculum are specifically designed to work together. And we all have dedicated teams of advisors who work with students really at this stage as prospective students all the way through the 4 years we serve as your advisors. And then frankly, we really get to know the alumni and work with students afterwards. Okay, do you mind? Yeah, so looking at our curriculum, here's just a quick overview. So for the Huntsman program, the international studies major is unique to the Huntsman program. At Penn, there is an international relations major in the College of Arts and Sciences, and there are certainly language and regional studies, but the international studies major is unique to Huntsman. And it really is an integrated degree. Where it's not international business with a flair of a little bit of liberal arts. It is fully integrated with the international business, the international studies, really that social science approach to understanding global issues. Also, wrapped into this idea of advanced language study and area and regional studies, really kind of understanding global issues through the cultural lens and other perspectives. So specifically mentioned, there are 11 target languages in the Huntsman program that are all listed here. When you apply to the Huntsman program, you need to apply as a specific target, and the expectation is you're going to be, that's your area of your specialization. So the expectation is that students have at least an intermediate level of proficiency in their target language, and there are different ways of showing that. If you're able to take through obviously your transcript and your coursework through your high school. Some students take AP or IB. Those would all be, pieces of your application. If you're able to take the subject tests in the language, that's another way. But within the application, there's also a question that says, tell us about your language experience. And for some students, particularly maybe something like Arabic that isn't taught as commonly, at least in most US high schools, you might need to kind of share a little bit more about your background in that language, as opposed to simply being able to demonstrate it on your transcript, and we understand that. But the idea is that you're going to come in with an intermediate level of proficiency and continue to study. So by the time you're a junior, you're going to be able to study abroad and take college level courses in the region in that target language. So that's what you're working towards. There are also international studies and international business courses leading up to a global immersion course. We had been hoping to do our first global immersion course, actually looking at Brexit, traveling with one of our full cohorts of students to London. Unfortunately, we weren't able to travel there this spring, but we're going to look forward to doing that as soon as we possibly can. And then leading up to our senior capstone, which in some ways is similar to some of the capstones you've heard about in the other programs, but we also just offer, many of our students choose to pursue a traditional senior thesis. So research on a topic usually related to their target region. And again, all Huntsman students will study abroad for a semester in a region where their target language is spoken. And if anyone is curious about the study abroad options, you can just go to the Penn Abroad website and search for study abroad programs and see any of the college or Wharton approved programs are programs that Huntsman students participate in. Next slide. Okay. And we talk a lot about community with the Huntsman program. Really, this living and learning community begins with the first year. So in addition to world-class education, available through Penn, the courses and the faculty and the research and the clubs, et cetera, Huntsman students, alumni, they always talk about the sense of community while they're students, but also while they're alumni. And it begins with our students who live together on the same hall in King's Court. The slide's probably a little bit small, but you can kind of see that globe just gives a snapshot of where our incoming students are coming from this particular year. So in any given year, we always have many international students, many students who might have, international background, dual citizenship, that kind of thing, but also many students who may not have even traveled abroad before, enjoyed studying a language. Students, who may not have traveled outside of their state before, but really pursued their language and ended up deciding that they really wanted to study international studies and business. The next slide, please. Okay, and when we think about leadership, Huntsman students, they're a diverse group, and every four-year journey really is unique, but there's a common thread, I would say, of curiosity, wanting to connect with others, being interested in cross-cultural understanding and leadership. So these are just some snapshots of students participating in a global trek to Patagonia, students in a global seminar in India. Many of our students participate in student government. You can see actually a picture of the MNT and Huntsman soccer game last year. So also, there are some friendly rivalries among the coordinated dual degree programs. Lots of our students participate in case competitions, and they develop startups. Many of them do internships abroad. So a little bit of a snapshot. And then I think my last two slides before we shift to some time for Q&A is just a little bit about summer and post-grad opportunities. The Huntsman curriculum really does prepare students for countless possibilities when you think about international studies and business. The application of the transferable skills and that knowledge of interconnectedness of global issues is just transferable in so many ways. So our students do quite a lot of different things while they're undergraduates and postgrad. So I'll refer you to our website, because on our homepage there is a link to Huntsman in the World where you can really kind of do a deep dive to get a sense of what our students did last summer. But I always like to mention the list on the side are some of the opportunities offered through Penn that Huntsman students typically participate in, internships and research, but also our alumni community and our advisory board, like the other programs mentioned, is incredibly committed and connected. So we receive internship opportunities almost on a daily basis from our alums, and we do have summer support. So many of our students do pursue additional intensive language study over the summers, or they might receive funding from the program for unpaid internships, for example, with, say, the State Department. Certainly they're very competitive for private sector internships, but many of our students are interested in policy and NGO kind of work. So we thankfully have funds so students can pursue those opportunities as well. Okay, yes, another slide, and this is just another snapshot of, this summer obviously looked a little bit different than some past summers, but this gives you a sense of what some of our students were doing last summer. First, I'll just mention a couple you can read through, but Yina did actually some language study in addition to interning with Suyo in Colombia, where she actually connected with that internship with one of our alums, who I'll show you on one of our next slides. So that'll give you just a sense of how opportunities often open through our alumni network. Samita, she actually ended up doing intensive language study in France last summer with some funding from the program, and she also applied for and was awarded a Pulitzer Center fellowship through one of Penn's centers on campus. So she was actually in Morocco for part of the summer doing research as well. Okay, and I know for the sake of time, so we have a couple of minutes for questions. I'll just kind of point out, Huntsman students, we have over 21 years of graduates now. Our program's about 22 years old, actually. So you can kind of look on our website and see some of our alumni profiles. Certainly, Huntsman students, they make highly successful candidates for some of the top firms you see listed here, consulting firms, financial services firms, tech firms, but they also go into quite a wide variety of fields: policy, tech, law, medical school, education, healthcare, media, and so many other areas. So I guess if you don't mind going to my last slide, I'll just again point to this page that you can get to from our homepage or from the Huntsman in the World page, where it just gives you just some short interviews and profiles of some of our alums if you want to learn a little bit more.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly. And I'm seeing a lot of questions in the Q&A about admissions and how do we apply, which is totally understandable. Hopefully you've fallen in love with our programs and want to learn more about us. And so here's just some more information about admissions. So you can apply early decision, regular decision, or we also accept transfers with the exception of the Huntsman program. When you're filling out that application, it's just the Penn application. You would apply to the CDD as the first choice, but then you can also specify a single degree school option as your second choice. And if you're applying early decision, if you're not admitted to the CDD of your choice, you can specify whether or not you want to be considered early decision for that single degree school, or whether or not you want to be considered as regular decision. So you're not bound to be early decision unless you specifically choose that. There are supplemental essays that are required for application to the CDD programs. So you can check out, that's actually on the admissions website. You can see what those prompts are. And then if you're interested in transferring, say you weren't admitted for when you initially applied to Penn, but you're interested in transferring, with the exception of Huntsman, our programs do allow for applications to transfer after completing the first year at Penn. And the application is highly competitive and it's dependent on the space, as well as each program has their own processes and timelines. So definitely look into each one of these and what it entails. If you're interested in applying early decision, the deadline for that is November 1st of this year. And then for regular decision, it's January 5th of 2021. All right, so if you are interested in learning more about any one of our programs, we're listing here the different upcoming information sessions, as well as our emails and how to find us on social media so that you can learn more about us. And especially if you aren't able to get your questions answered right now, definitely check those out. Those are going to be a really great resource to learn more specifics about the programs. And if you are interested in going to those information sessions, the link here is on the bottom. It might be the link that you found to find this webinar in the first place. All right, so I know that we don't have a ton of time,